Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. In a daze, Qin Mu felt someone climbing up his body. He had quite a temper while asleep, and thus, he gave 2 kicks and kicked that person off the bed. That person was also in a daze and climbed back onto the bed while pulling on the blanket, snuggling up to his chest. However, she was kicked down by Qin Mu once again. In the end, the 3 girls huddled up together to sleep, leaving Qin Mu alone on the other side. The last few days of hard work had resulted in Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu falling into a deep sleep. When Qin Mu woke up the next morning, Ling Yuxiu had snuggled herself under his arm. To get up, he carefully shifted his arm, afraid of waking her up. Actually, Ling Yuxiu had already woken up, but she was a thin-skinned girl. She was afraid things would be awkward when she woke up, so she pretended to sleep. When he had gotten up, she secretly opened her eyes and saw him grabbing his shoes and tiptoeing out of the room. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief after walking out of the room. The twin sisters had woken up earlier and were talking in the courtyard. One of them said, "Young Master Qin likes to punch around in his sleep. He gave me a good beating, just look at my swollen eye. Not only that, I got kicked on the chest and pushed off the bed. Did he take advantage of you?" "Not even once." "However, how are we supposed to report that the princess and young master were sleeping together and even we were on the same bed, sharing a blanket?" The 2 girls stayed silent for a moment, then said in unison, "We won't. Young master and princess won't speak of it, so it's best not to say anything. In regards to the face of the imperial family, saying too much would result in being executed." The girls naturally knew that, and that's why they had made the decision to keep their silence. Qin Mu put on his shoes and walked out with a cough. The 2 palace maids immediately greeted him. "Young master is awake? Us sisters were rude and impetuous yesterday. Luckily, with young master's care, we didn't lose our lives to Little Poison King." Qin Mu returned the greeting and said, "Luckily the 2 big sisters were there and injured Little Poison King, preventing him from being impudent." The 2 palace maids looked at each other and laughed in unison. "Young master, don't call us big sisters. We serve Empress Dowager and don't even have a surname, only a name. I'm called Jianqi, and she's called Qinqi." The 2 palace maids couldn't help laughing when they saw him sizing up the both of them to differentiate who was Jianqi and who was Qinqi. With this laugh, Qin Mu noticed that Jianqi had a small canine tooth on her left while Qinqi had a small canine tooth on her right. "Young master, we haven't returned for the whole night, so we have to come back to the palace earlier to report on the completion of our mission," Qinqi said. Qin Mu nodded and said, "After a night's sleep, the remaining poison in your body should have been detoxified, so there shouldn't be any problems. Still, I have some detoxing pellets with me, so you 2 can take them." The 2 palace maids gave their thanks and received the detoxing pellets. They were about to leave when Ling Yuxiu's voice came from the room. "Wait for me. I shall go back with the 2 of you." The 2 women stopped and looked back to see Ling Yuxiu running over at them in a panic, her clothes disheveled, a white undercoat askew. Her beautiful hair was also messy, and she was rushing with her outer clothing clasped under her arm and dragging her shoes out with her feet. When she dropped them behind, she immediately lifted her feet up to get the shoes up, but her jet black hair completely scattered, flowing down her shoulders like a waterfall. She wanted to take control of her hair, but then the outer clothing she was clasping fell down. She cut a very sorry figure. Qin Mu looked at her and saw a plump chest that was about to run out from her clothing. The youth's heart then wavered, and he didn't know whether to warn her or go forward to help her stuff them back in. Jianqi and Qinqi looked at each other and walked forward to escort the princess back into the room to help her dress and groom herself. Ling Yuxiu's cheeks turned red from embarrassment, and she collected her courage to ask them softly, "Will I get pregnant?" The 2 palace maids stared with their eyes wide open and asked in astonishment, "Why did princess say that?" "I've heard from people in the palace saying that when a male and female sleep together, the female will get pregnant," Ling Yuxiu said seriously. "We slept together for almost a whole day and night, so I might just be pregnant." Jianqi burst out laughing. "Princess, you're mistaken, it's not like that. Aya, I can't explain it to you clearly, but the young master is a divine physician, so he definitely has ways to prevent pregnancy. Ling Yuxiu opened her eyes wide. That's possible? Isn't that so? I've heard some rich madams who don't want to give birth look for apothecaries to prescribe them medicine so they won't get pregnant. Qin Mu sent the 3 women off and noticed that the pear blossoms on the yellow pear tree had blossomed, filling the entire tree with their blooms. Spring is finally here. He thought to himself, when the grains of the first season mature, this year of disaster will finally be over. He washed up, and since there was only the dragon Chilean accompanying him, he didn't have the intention to cook and just went down the mountain to eat. When he walked out of his courtyard, he saw Chancellor Ba Shan walking over in a shirt. With a loud voice, he said, I saw the princess and 2 palace maids carrying lanterns down the mountain. Could they have come from your room? Senior brother, don't say nonsense when you have no evidence, Qin Mu said with a normal face and heartbeat. Did senior brother come to find me regarding Pangongo? Have you had breakfast? Chancellor Ba Shan was a loudmouth no inferior to Duke Wei. If the incident regarding Ling Yuxiu and the 2 palace maids sleeping in Qin Mu's room for a night were found out by him, the entire capital would know about it. To Qin Mu, it started with emotion and stopped with politeness. He hadn't done anything out of line, but this was no small matter to the secular people. If news of him sleeping with the princess spread, the emperor would execute him, so it was best to hide it. I just ate below. Knowing that you had just come back from the palace and must be hungry after being exhausted for such a long time, I brought some food for you. Chancellor Ba Shan took out a couple all-paper packets, and Qin Mu took them from him with thanks. When he opened the paper packets, he saw a tray of steamed stuffed buns, some kind of strange beast's meat which was cooked with clear water, a red sauce made with fermented flour mixed with finely chopped spring onions, and salted vegetables. Qin Mu invited him into the house to sit down and eat. Chancellor Ba Shan looked at him gorging himself and sighed ruefully. The emperor is really stingy, not preparing anything good for you to eat when you were there to treat him. That's right, Pangongo's 6 directions divine treasure is already halfway through his wall break. So fast. Qin Mu raised his head and revealed an expression of astonishment. One would become a divine arts practitioner by cultivating to 6 directions realm. During one's cultivation, any one of the realms required fine grinding, so someone like Qin Mu breaking the walls of 5 elements divine treasure in 2 years' time was already considered very fast. He had cultivated diligently in 5-element realm for close to 1 year and had only reached the boundary of 6 directions realm. He still didn't know when he would be able to succeed in breaking the wall. When he met Pangongo the last time, the other had been still a young boy in spirit embryo realm, and now, after only half a year, Pangongo's realm had already surpassed that of Qin Mu. The other had become a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. This was no ordinary cultivation speed and could be called the speed of a god. There's something strange about that brat. Chancellor Ba Shan pinched a salted vegetable and stuffed it into his mouth. The Hall of 6 Directions in Imperial College is the place which teaches how to break the wall of 6 directions divine treasure, and all scholars on 5 elements realm who have cultivated perfectly would go there to listen to the lectures. Chen Wanyun, Yu Qinghong, Qin Yu, Yun Qiu, Fatty Wei, and other nobles have gone there, and this Pangongo is also there as well. Nun Hong Fa of Hall of 6 Directions said that his advancements are extremely fast, and he didn't need her guidance at all. He had reached the perfection in 5 elements realm just 3 days ago, and now he was already halfway through breaking the wall. In 2 more days, he would be a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. That's right, in which step of your cultivation are you in now? I'm basically perfect in 5 elements realm. Qin Mu ate a large mouthful of meat, then said, it's just that I have no understanding regarding 6 directions realm. Chancellor Ba Shan's gaze flickered. In that case, you should drop by Hall of 6 Directions. Nun Hong Fa teaches this specially. I would like to see if you or Pangongo is stronger. Qin Mu didn't even raise his head. I feel like there's no need for this. I overlord body. Yes, I know, you're the overlord body, the one above all, haughty brat. Chancellor Ba Shan smiled. I had Chen Wanyun test him, and Wanyun only managed to make 2 moves before he was defeated. Qin Mu finally raised his head and said in astonishment, 2 moves. Senior brother, you sure he only used 2 moves to defeat Chen Wanyan? Chancellor Ba Shan nodded. Qin Mu had a grave expression. Chen Wanyan's aptitude was indeed extraordinary, and he was one of the more outstanding ones among the young generation. His aptitude and comprehension were merely a level lower than that of Fozi and Daozi, and he had extremely high abilities. When Fozi Fuxin had blocked the gate of Imperial College back then, Chen Wanyan had gone forth to challenge him was defeated only after over a dozen moves. This clearly showed his abilities. His accumulation was very strong and solid. After receiving Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's guidance, he practically had no shortcomings. After coming back from the southern borders, Qin Mu had seen him less and less. He heard that he spent most of his time in Floor of Heavenly Records, most likely cultivating the state of God transformation of 5 elements realm. Even if Chen Wanyan, who had succeeded in cultivating the state of God transformations, was not on par with Fozi Fuxin, he was not far from him. Qin Mu reckoned that defeating Chen Wanyan with just 2 moves would be hard to achieve unless he used a powerful move like sword treading mountains and rivers right at the start. Interesting. After Qin Mu finished eating, he wiped his mouth and smiled. Marshal Khan, what are you planning by pushing me time and again to go to Hall of 6 Directions and meet that Pangongo? Chancellor Ba Shan said leisurely, I'm trying to get you to investigate him. I suspect he has been possessed by a spirit. Furthermore, the overlord body shouldn't be scared, right? Spirit possession? Qin Mu was slightly stunned and recalled Butcher mentioning an old monster in the Golden Palace who had reincarnated 18 times and lived through 19 lifetimes when they were heading to Roland's Golden Palace. He cried out, what you mean is? Chancellor Ba Shan nodded and said, I suspect Pangongo is no longer Pangongo and has been replaced by an incomparably terrifying old monster, one that has lived for 10,000 years. He's the old foe of Teacher Heaven Knife, the one because of which Teacher abandoned his name, not daring to use it anymore. Qin Mu nodded. Chancellor Ba Shan had told him about this before. Butcher didn't tell anyone about his name before, and not even Chancellor Ba Shan knew his name because of that strong practitioner of Roland's Golden Palace that had reincarnated 18 times. That was a terrifying entity that could cast spells and harm people once he knew their names. Chen Wanyan couldn't dig out any information from him, so I would like you to go meet him at Hall of 6 Directions. Chancellor Ba Shan's gaze flickered when he said, Teacher Heaven Knife's greatest foe is that person, and if Pangongo was really possessed by him, killing Pangongo would mean getting rid of a foe for Teacher. However, he is still the son of barbarian Di Empire's Khan, so without a definite certainty, I won't make a move. This is why only you can test him. His appearance was boorish, but his thoughts were sharp. Qin Mu rose and said, I'm also trying to break the wall to enter 6 Directions realm, so I'll go to Hall of 6 Directions. He then blushed with shame. Senior brother, which hall is Hall of 6 Directions? Chancellor Ba Shan almost puked blood. You've been in Imperial College for almost a whole year, yet you still don't know which hall is Hall of 6 Directions. Qin Mu said with embarrassment, even though I've come to Imperial College so long ago, I've only attended 1 lesson. I'll bring you there. Chancellor Ba Shan brought him out of Scholar's residence and they walked away side by side. Something suddenly came to Qin Mu's mind and he asked, Senior brother, have you heard of Heavenly Saint cult before? Chancellor Ba Shan threw him at the front of Hall of 6 Directions and turned to leave immediately, afraid that Qin Mu would continue nagging him to join Heavenly Saint cult. Qin Mu then said resentfully, I'll make you join sooner or later. The directorate of Hall of 6 Directions was Nun Hong Fa. She was a person of virtue and prestige, and also a person from Buddhism, teaching students ever since Imperial College was founded here. Qin Mu walked into Hall of 6 Directions, but it was still early, so no scholars had come to attend the lecture yet. However, the old nun was already here, cleaning the hall spick and span. When the bell rang, the scholars walked inside, and Nun Hong Fa started the lecture unhurriedly. 6 Directions, what are 6 Directions? Heaven, earth, and the 4 cardinal directions, that's the 6 Directions. 6 Directions divine treasure is in our body, and if we want to break the wall, we have to confirm the location of the 6 Directions wall first. How can we confirm? We need to calculate. I've made you guys revise the calculations of the 6 directions yesterday, so have you guys revised it yet? Qin Mu blinked and looked at the other people in the hall. He saw that there were quite a number of scholars attending the lecture here, around 30 people in total. Chen Wanyun, Yu Qinghong, Sai Yunxiang, and the rest were all among them. Then he saw Pangongo. This youth wasn't listening to the lecture, but had closed his eyes, trying to break his wall. Nun Hongfei's speech slowed down. A person standing on flat ground can easily identify north, south, east, west, up, and down, but how do you determine the north, south, east, and west of the heaven and earth in your body? We can use your spirit embryo divine treasure to determine up and down. The top of the spirit embryo's head is the heaven and what the feet are stepping on is the earth. With the up and down confirmed, we still need to determine north, south, east, and west, which requires the positions of the 5-element stars of 5 elements divine treasure. You have all learned 10 computational canons which are used to locate the 5-element stars and use them to calculate the north, south, east, and west of the heaven and earth in your hearts. For that, you will need 6 directions algorithm. Now, let's flip to page 17 of 6 directions computational canon, south compass point algorithm. Qin Mu looked around and suddenly someone poked him in the back. He turned and saw it was Sai Yunxiang. The saintess of heavenly saint cult bit her lip and whispered, "I saw cult master dragging 3 girls into your room yesterday night." "When did I do that?" Qin Mu firmly denied. Sai Yunxiang said softly, "One of them was the 7th princess." Qin Mu's face flushed. "Saintess, don't taint my reputation. Lend me your 6 directions computational canon to have a look. It's my first time here so I don't have the book. The classroom is a sacred ground, so how can whisperings be condoned?" Nun Hongfei slammed the table and shouted out, "Both of you go out, stand at the corner of the wall." Sai Yunxiang grabbed her 6 direction computational canon and walked out with Qin Mu. The two of them leaned against the wall, and Sai Yunxiang passed the computational canon to him while snickering, "Cult master is lusty, be careful of landing in the same predicament as cult master Li." Qin Mu flipped open the computational canon and saw many methods of calculation. These were methods of calculations that were developed with 10 computational canons, using the foundation of the 5-element stars to calculate the precise location of north, south, east, and west. What Nun Hongfei was lecturing was the south compass point algorithm on page 17, which could help in determining the south. As long as the south was determined, north, east, and west could also be located. A straight line would then be drawn from up to down and one would be able to determine the most precise location of 6 directions wall in the human body. Everyone was unique and thus the location of everyone's 5 elements divine treasure was different. However, it just had to be the way to determine 6 directions divine treasure. This was why the location of everyone's 6 directions divine treasure was slightly different, so the calculations have to be precise and could hold no mistakes. Not long after, Qin Mu finished browsing through 6 directions computational canon. He learned that what 6 direction computational canon used was 5 phases quinary system and 6 direction senary system. It required to change the quinary system used to calculate the 5-element stars into the senary system before calculating. Qin Mu was stunned and suddenly thought of Duqian Devil King's advice. Duqian Devil King had once said the octal system could be calculated using the 8 trigrams, and because of this, Qin Mu had been enlightened and comprehended the other tools of calculation in computational canon of supreme mystery. The 8 trigrams of Taiji included yin and yang binary system, for symbols quaternary system, and 8 trigrams octal system. However, if he added 5 phases quinary system and 6 directions senary system, these tools of calculation would be even more complicated. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said the 4 great spirit bodies are not the 5 phases. Instead, each type of spirit body includes the 5 phases. This means that the 4 great spirit bodies, green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, are the 4 symbols in the 8 trigrams of Taiji. Everything suddenly became clear to Qin Mu. There were 4 symbols, and each and every one of them had 5 phases. Thus, the different arrangements of the 5 phases formed a symbol. This also meant that the calculation of 5 phases quinary system could be used to calculate the transformation of the 4 symbols. In this way, he would have the tool of calculation from 5 to 4. And for 6 directions, the 4 symbols could be used to determine north, south, east, and west, and with the yin and yang, he would have the tool to calculate 6 directions. This means that I can very quickly calculate the location of my 6-direction divine treasure. Qin Mu returned 6 directions computational cannon to Cai Yunxiang and stretched out his hand. Placing his right palm on his left palm, he pulled them open upwards and downwards, and his vital qi instantly formed a bizarre Taiji diagram which included yin and yang, for symbols, and the 5 phases included in the 4 symbols. Qin Mu pulled open his hands once again in excitement, and layers of the Taiji 5 phases diagram broke up, operating respectively in a regular and thorough process. Cai Yunxiang looked at the diagram that was changing continuously and immediately asked, "How did you calculate that? It's slightly different from what Nun Hong Fa is teaching. Let me copy it." Qin Mu calculated rapidly and divided his mind into 2 to tell her about what he had comprehended. Cai Yunxiang's eyes became brighter and brighter. She was also more talented than others and quickly comprehended the marvel of it. She exclaimed in admiration, "This method is good. The method in 6 directions computational canon is too complicated and requires 1 to 2 months to be able to calculate the result, making it prone to mistakes. There will be no mistake using your method, and we can calculate it in just 2 to 4 hours." Qin Mu smiled. Taiji, for symbols, 5 elements, 6 directions, and 8 trigrams have originally been calculation tools used for operations. Now that he looked at computational canon of supreme mystery, he felt all kinds of hard-to-understand problems were easy to solve, and he felt happy. However, if he wanted to succeed in cultivating the teleportation divine art, just computational canon of supreme mystery alone was not enough. Nun Hong Fa was still giving her lecture in the hall. As time went by, Qin Mu finally determined the location of his 6 directions divine treasure, which was somewhere near his Dantian, connecting the heaven to the earth. That location was sometimes also called Lower Dantian, the place where the 6 directions meet, while the people of Dao sect referred to it as the Yellow Court. The middle Dantian was at the heart and was called the Crimson Palace. The upper Dantian was located at the heart of the brows, and Dao sect referred to it as Spirit Platform, while Buddhism referred to it as Square Inch Mountain. Qin Mu determined where his Crimson Palace was located, and instantly gathered all his vital qi to rush towards his 6-direction wall. His cultivation was originally incomparably dense and surpassed that of his peers. Gathering all his vital qi this time, he pounded against the 6 directions wall, and it was instantly covered in cracks. Booming sounds of huge waves came from his body as Qin Mu gathered his vital and pounded against it the second time. The sound of was even more resonating this time, and it seemed like angry waves were splitting the shore. They rose to the clouds, and the sound was becoming louder and more intense each time. The poundings from Qin Mu's vital qi became fiercer and fiercer each time. Whoosh! His 6 directions wall suddenly broke, and a huge gap appeared. Qin Mu continued to gather his vital qi to pound at the broken wall, widening the gap. In the hall of 6 directions, Nun Hong Fa and the rest of the scholars also heard the sound of vital qi colliding from Qin Mu's body and revealed an astonished expression. Imperial Academician. Nun Hong Fa immediately ran out in a panic and said, "If you didn't calculate the exact location of the 6-direction wall and break it rashly, you will die." Just as she said it, a loud rumble suddenly came from Qin Mu's body as though the heaven and earth had been opened up. Qin Mu's cultivation then rose rapidly. 6 directions wall broken. 6 directions divine treasure awakened. Right at that moment, another rumble came from Hall of 6 directions, and it was Pangongo who had successfully awakened his 6 directions divine treasure. It was just that the attention of all the scholars and Nun Hong Fa in Hall of 6 directions had been attracted by Qin Mu, so no one noticed him. The air around Pangongo became denser and denser. His gaze flickered as he rose from the mat to look out the hall. Nun Hong Fa was stunned and immediately said, "Imperial Academician, try to close all your divine treasures and burst them all open in one go." Qin Mu took in a deep breath and closed his spirit embryo divine treasure, 5 elements divine treasure, and 6 directions divine treasure. He then gave a low shout and rumbles came from his spirit platform, Crimson Palace, and Imperial Court. There was a total of 3 rumbles as his 3 great divine treasures opened up and his aura increased exponentially. You really awakened your 6 directions divine treasure. Nun Hongfa sighed in astonishment and looked at Sai Yunxiang, who was at the side. This girl was also trying to break her 6 directions wall. It was evident that she had also found the exact location of her 6 directions wall. The nun had chased these 2 whispering young man and woman out the hall and had never expected the 2 of them to find the location of their 6 directions wall in a short while. One of them even managed to succeed in breaking the wall on his first try and became a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. Nun Hongfa put her palms together. Cult Ma, Imperial Academician, you seem to have a secret method to calculate the location of 6 directions wall, which is much faster than this poor nun's 6 directions computational canon. I wonder if you can hand it down. Qin Mu smiled. Nun is too polite. My abilities are meager and I don't dare to show off in front of everyone. However, I'm willing to share what I have comprehended with you and fellow scholars. Nun Hongfa was delighted and immediately invited him into the hall. She said to all the scholars, "Today I've invited the Imperial Academician to give you guys a lecture." Imperial Academician, please. Qin Mu looked at Pangongo, who was sitting at the back of the hall, and smiled. Prince Pangongo from the Great Wall has also broken his 6 directions wall and become a divine art practitioner. I wonder if you are interested to share what you have learned. Everyone looked back at Pangongo, who shook his head. I'm a barbarian from the Great Wall, so I don't dare to show off. Cult Master Qin, please. Qin Mu narrowed his eyes and told his operation technique to everyone in the hall. Nun Hongfa was surprised and delighted, and she grasped the chance to ask questions continuously. She marveled at his technique, making everyone in the hall intoxicated by the lecture. After some time, Qin Mu finally finished talking about his operation technique and the scholars in the hall tested it, trying to master it. However, since some people have high wisdom and some people have low comprehension, not everyone was able to master it. Imperial Academician, with this kind of operation technique from you, this poor nun will be able to recompile 6 directions computational canon. Nun Hongfa smiled. I wonder if Academician is willing to sign his name as a co-author. Qin Mu said unflinchingly, this is a good deed that could benefit people for 1,000 years to come. If I could sign my name on it, I would naturally happy to. However, my name on it has to be Heavenly Saint Cult Master Qin Mu. Nun Hongfa's face blackened, and she thought to herself, is the Heavenly Saint Cult Master, so if my name was seen alongside his, wouldn't I be seen as someone from the devil path as well? Excellent, excellent, this poor nun is affected by reputation again. To be lined up with Heavenly Devil Cult, this poor nun is then the honored one. Qin Mu looked at Pangongo and smiled. Little Prince, you and I broke through and became divine arts practitioners of 6 directions realm at almost the same time. This is the so-called at the right time at the right place. It's such a rare thing for us to be on the similar realm, so why don't we exchange some blows? Pangongo shook his head. Cult Master Qin is joking, I'm here to seek knowledge. Qin Mu smiled and said, seek knowledge? I happen to have a set of knife skills here that are created and taught by Heaven Knife. Do you want to learn this set of knife skills? Pangongo raised his eyebrows and his gaze landed on Qin Mu. Instantly, the miserable shrieks and howls of countless ghosts rang out beside Qin Mu's ears. Powerful. Qin Mu circulated Heavenly Devil creation technique to seal his souls and spirits, astonished. Roland's Golden Palace's techniques were extremely unusual. They used souls for cultivating techniques, and it didn't matter if it were the souls of demons, monsters, gods, or beasts, they could all be used for cultivation. Pangongo's gaze was not an ordinary gaze, for in his eyes, there was a divine art that was targeted at souls. With his gaze alone, the divine art would have an impact on the opponent's soul. If the opponent wasn't on guard, they would get stared to death by him. Heavenly Devil creation technique was just the right technique to counter that divine art targeted at the soul. Of course, this was because the power of the divine art in Pangongo's eyes wasn't so powerful that Heavenly Devil creation technique couldn't defend against it. If the divine art in his eyes wasn't targeted at the soul, but at the corporeal body or Tao heart, Heavenly Devil creation technique wouldn't be able to defend against it. Knife skills of Heaven Knife. Pangongso's raised eyebrows smoothed out, and he asked, "There are such skills in Floor of Heavenly Records?" "Floor of Heavenly Records don't have them, but I have." Qin Mu smiled as he raised his hand to grab the handle of his pig-slaughtering knife. Just as his palm gripped onto the knife's handle, the pages of the books in Hall of Six Directions fluttered as if there was an invisible giant who had raised a gale by giving a slash. The skin of Pangongso's face creased from being blown at, and a few strands of hair broke off silently. The hearts of Chen Wangyun, Yu Qinghong, and the rest trembled slightly, and they thought to themselves, Cult Master Qin's abilities have improved quite a bit. He had already cultivated a knife will from his knife. He had merely gone home for New Year, so how come his knife skills had improved so much during that time? They had all followed Qin Mu to the southern border to gain experience by pacifying the rebellion and had been through life and death with him. They knew Qin Mu's abilities, so even though his knife skills had been powerful back then, they were far from how powerful they were at this moment. Cultivating a knife will from knife skills meant that his knife skills had a qualitative leap, and this wasn't something that could be done in just a few days of cultivating diligently. What they didn't know was how difficult it had been for Qin Mu to return home for New Year. It could be said to have been a narrow escape, being ambushed from 10 sides. He was surrounded, chased, blocked, and intercepted all the time, fighting bloody battles for days on end before reaching disabled elderly village after numerous trials and tribulations. Yet when he reached his home, he didn't have a peaceful New Year either. After the celebration, he had to fight with the elders daily. Butcher, Old Ma, Cripple, Blind, and the rest fed him blows and talked about all kinds of comprehensions. There was also village chief, this strong practitioner, training him. Going home this time for New Year was a huge challenge for Qin Mu, which was equivalent to him cultivating for 2 to 3 years diligently. Not only did his knife skills had a qualitative leap, his sword skills, body techniques, Buddhist skills, and techniques, eye power, and Dao heart had all had qualitative leaps. Pangongso's brows twitched as the heart of his brows was being pressured by Qin Mu's knife will. It seemed like Qin Mu would unsheath his knife anytime and the heart of his brows would be slashed at that moment. He was about to react when Nun Hong Fa suddenly came to stand between the two of them, and Qin Mu's knife will was intercepted by the nun. This is Hall of Six Directions, a place to cultivate 6 directions and awaken your divine treasure. It's not a place for you guys to fight. Nun Hongfei's gaze swept past the both of them, and she said indifferently, "There are rules in Imperial College, and if you cultivate in my Hall of Six Directions, you're my disciples and have to abide by the rules of my Hall of Six Directions. Both of you have just broken the wall of your 6 Directions divine treasure and had just become divine arts practitioners. Your foundations are yet to be stable, so what's the point of being so hot-blooded?" Pangongso revealed and smiled. "None is right. Cult Master Qin, I'll experience your heaven knife another day." Once he said that, he walked towards the exit of the hall. Qin Mu walked beside him and smiled. "Why another day? Isn't it the end of the lesson? I think it's pretty good now. Once we are out of Hall of Six Directions, none won't be able to control us." Outside the hall, the great shamans of Roland's Golden Palace came up from the left and right to follow behind Pangongso. One of the great shamans said softly, "What's the rush, Cult Master Qin? If your hands are feeling itchy and want to fight, we as retainers would be glad to entertain you anytime." In Hall of Six Direction, Wei Yong, Chen Wangyun, and Qin Yu frowned. Cult Master Qin seemed slightly aggressive. Pangongso is an envoy from the foreign country who had come here to seek knowledge. Even though he was an enemy in the past, we have to abide by the etiquette and can't be rude. Monk Yun Q nodded. He's indeed slightly aggressive. Cult Master Qin should have a grudge against him, right? Qin Mu took a glance at the 2 great shamans of Roland's Golden Palace and said leisurely, "I have been to Roland's Golden Palace, and a cauldron of one drug paralyzed nearly all the great shamans of Roland's Golden Palace, scaring the shaman kings into fleeing in defeat. You two must have been paralyzed by me, right?" The look on the 2 great shamans' faces turned dark, but they didn't speak a word. "Or maybe, the both of you were beaten up by me." Qin Mu pondered over it, but he didn't have any recollections of the 2 of them, so he shook his head. It must be because the number of people I killed in Roland's Golden Palace was too high, so I don't remember the both of you. On the Golden Road of Roland's Golden Palace, the corpses rolled down one after another, dyeing the Golden Road crimson. My two knives had chopped their way from the outer courtyard disciples all the way to inner courtyard disciples before cutting down the disciple of Grand Shaman. In that time, how many shamans and great shamans had been killed? 100? Even if it's not 100, there must have been at least 80. I killed so many that the hearts of the shaman and great shamans in Roland's Golden Palace turned cold and no one dared to move. The faces of the two great shamans turned darker and darker while their palms trembled slightly. Golden light gradually emanated from the body of one of them, and his head transformed into a bird's head as he screeched, "That's because I was not in Roland's Golden Palace. I was out for experience. If I had been in Roland's Golden Palace, 10 of you would have been killed by me." Behind them, the scholars in Hall of Six Directions had just come out and were all greatly shaken. Most of them were slightly dumbstruck when they heard Qin Mu mentioning the incident. Even though they were classmates with Qin Mu, they didn't know that he had actually gone to Roland's Golden Palace to block their gates and even killed so many experts there. "I got it!" Wei Yong suddenly cried out. "I know who defeated Daozi and Fozi." Qin Yu, Chen Wanyun, and the rest were extremely astonished and cried out, "What you mean is that when Daozi and Fozi were blocking the gates, it was Cult Master Qin who forced them back?" Monk Yun Q said, "No wonder, truly no wonder. I was still thinking about who was the expert who had defeated Fozi and Daozi without leaving his name. So it was actually Cult Master Qin." Cai Yinxiang knitted her brows and was slightly displeased in her heart as she muttered to herself, "I was clearly the one who defeated Fozi." Chen Wanyan said solemnly, "I heard news saying Fozi is dead and was killed by our Cult Master Qin." Yu Qinghong said in a low voice, "Not long ago, the Crown Prince conspired to murder the Emperor and attempted to ascend the throne, and I heard it was Cult Master Qin who led the strong practitioners of Heavenly Saint, Heavenly Devil cult to slaughter their way to the Temple of Heaven. Cult Master Qin had chopped off the head of the Crown Prince personally." Everyone exchanged rumors they had heard and became more astonished the more they talked about him. This classmate Qin beside them had actually done so many universally shocking things. Nun Hong Fa gave them a stare and said, "Don't talk about this blindly. And also, stay further away from Cult Master Qin. He's the Devil Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult after all. Especially you, Cai Yunxiang, you're too close to him. If he pulled you into Heavenly Devil Cult, your whole life would be ruined." Cai Yinxiang replied helplessly, "I got it, I'll definitely sever all my ties with him." Nun Hong Fa shouted loudly, "Cult Master Qin, this is Imperial College and not your Heavenly Devil Cult. There are rules and Eternal Peace Empire have the laws of Eternal Peace Empire, exercise a little restraint." Then I plundered the treasury of Roland's Golden Palace. Qin Mu walked forward and hurriedly, his expression apathetic. He ignored Nun Hong Fa's words and continued, "Your Roland's Golden Palace had hoarded treasures for so long. There were all kinds of precious materials and items, all kinds of spirit treasures and strange weapons that were taken away by me. However, I had not touched even a single one of the treasures of your Golden Palace, but had thrown them on the ground. A thief never leaves empty-handed, but we also know what's worth to steal and what is not. I still understand this logic." Pangongo's expression remained unmoved, but the two great shamans from Roland's Golden Palace could no longer hold themselves back. Suddenly, the bird-headed great shaman let out a sharp cry which seemed like needles stabbing into the human brain and soul. During his cry, golden wings unfolded from his back with a whoosh. With a tremble, countless brilliant golden feathers shot out and converged into currents in the air, turning into golden light that came stabbing at Qin Mu from all directions. At the same time, this great shaman raised his legs which had already transformed into golden-colored talons which were incomparably sharp. With the talons that could split rocks, he rushed for Qin Mu's head. Grand Shaman Ruda Scripture's transformation is indeed interesting. You're the disciple of Grand Shaman and have already succeeded in cultivating divine arts. Qin Mu's eyes lighted up, and the two pig-slaughtering knives from his back leaped out. The noise of collision came clanking out like torrential rain, and in that instant, knife lights burst forth and broke through the golden sword lights. The knife lights seemed like they were 12 yards long. With one vertical and one horizontal light, every cloud has a silver lining severed one of the talons. The next moment, Qin Mu closed in, holding his knife in a reverse grip. Raising the knife from forbidden. When he raised the huge knife, the shaman's chest was split open to his belly. Before the corpse of that great shaman even collapsed to the ground, the head of another great shaman trembled and transformed into that of an elephant. His fists were like small mountains when he punched forward. Qin Mu let go of his knives and turned around. His vital qi burst forth, and the band that tied up his hair exploded in pieces. His pitch-black hair was raised perfectly straight by his vital qi that was soaring into the air. Boom! Their fists collided, and all the muscles on Qin Mu's body throbbed. There were even some muscles swiveling and coiling like pythons under his skin. The vital qi in Qin Mu's body appeared to be coiling green dragons, but since he had executed both Nine Dragons Monarch technique and Rulai's Mahayana Sutra at the same time, it was also like a huge Buddha sitting upright. With dragons coiling around the Buddha's body, a loud rumble sounded out as he unleashed another punch. The great shaman was like a golden elephant god with incomparable strength, able to split the heaven and earth apart with a punch and a kick due to the immense strength in his fists and legs. Bang, bang, bang. The fists of the two people collided thrice, and Qin Mu pulled back his hands, dispersing his shocking aura. All the throbbing muscles in his body calmed back down. On the other hand, the elephant-headed great shaman snarled ferociously. He gave another punch at his opponent's face, and his boundless strength raised a gale. However, before this punch could even land on Qin Mu's body, an explosion suddenly came from the great shaman's body, and all his bones broke into pieces. His muscles disintegrated, and his vital qi scattered, which resulted in him collapsing onto the ground like a pile of mush. Air only came out from his mouth but did not go in. Qin Mu's 3 punches had resulted in a power that reached all parts of the great shaman's body, shattering all his bones, muscles, and vital qi. The scholars from Hall of Six Directions were all flabbergasted, and they stood still in a daze. Even Nun Hong Fa felt her body turning cold. Qin Mu was basically a lawless ruffian, beating 2 of the foreign country's envoys to death with just 3 punches and 2 knives, and it was even done in Imperial College. Qin Mu ignored them and turned to look at Pangongo with a smile on his face. He didn't look like a vicious ruffian that would kill people without reason in the least when he said, "Who will be the one to drag these corpses away and clean the floor?" "Little prince, my abilities should not be bad, right? Do you have the urge to make a move?" This video will end here.